get through a rough patch and an even better patch, as it were, in the last year. Supreme Governor of Region 5, Brother Craig Theros from up north, poor brother. I have to remind him, he was smart in front of you to say that I'm from West Virginia, not Cleveland, number one. But number two, he didn't know we had a beautiful guest suite upstairs in the house. And we put him in Max's room. Think about that one, brother. My cousin, Georgette, grand treasurer, the daughters of Penelope, and of course our executive director, Basil Musayis, a brother archon as well, and I would say my vision of a patriarch in AHEPA. Basil, thank you right now for everything you've done for me this year and my family. Chapter President, Bill Davidson. Chapter President-elect, Jim Bankitis. Daughters President, Palace Athene. I know it. Kiki Timuridas. Ricky. And we got George, of course, as the chairman of this committee. It was the first sleepover I ever had in Weirton, West Virginia, was at George's house. I think you all should be aware of that. And your committee, thank you for this marvelous evening. AHEPA and daughters, officers, past, present, AHEPA family, my All Saints Greek Orthodox Church family, my Weirton family, welcome. Thank you for being here to honor not only me, but my wife and family. We've come full circle, or is it really a half circle? I feel like Homer's Odysseus, coming home after a long-fought battle, and trying to bring honor to my community and to my family, and after being away for many years, because it's taken 8 years to get to this point. It was George Andoniou who prophesied that after I finished my first year as Supreme Counselor. He said, "You want to move up?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." He says, "Get ready, it's going to take a long time." And it did. I remember the glory days of AHEPA, though, here in our church. I remember climbing these walls like a mouse or something, running around this place. I remember with Dino Galeotis, who couldn't be here, my cubano, because his son's graduating high school today, trying our first cigarette in one of these stairwells right over here. And I'm calling him out because he couldn't be here. But this place, this church, this AHEPA hall, being at Greek school 3 days a week, and trying to find something to do. And we would go to the AHEPA temple, the George E. Loucas AHEPA temple. And we would play on that pool table in there. The bumper table, if anybody's been down there to see it. I don't even know if it's still there. It's been lost as a casualty. But all that time that we would spend there, my grandfather, the pictures of my grandfather would be looming down at me from above as though a siren calling out to me. And I'd go to my grandmother's house, and she'd have that picture up there too. And I always remembered it. And I always remembered the fact that I was named after him. And I always remembered what I was taught here, as Georgette said, and I've tried to teach wherever I go, this concept of philotimo, and how, even though I'm from Cleveland, it's by way of Weirton, West Virginia, and this is where my roots were laid down. I look out and see all these faces, family, friends, and I have a quip about every face in here, just about 90% probably. And I'm compelled, I feel as though I want to say something about each one of you. That's how closely entwined I am with this community. And I thank you all for showing up here this evening. I think it was a rite of passage after that to be initiated into a HEPA here. And the night after I was initiated, my father drove me home. And I said, Dad, why aren't you a member? He said, son, a HEPA is a great, great institution. It will mean a lot to you someday, and you will be able to give to so many through this organization. But I have sacrificed enough through a HEPA. I gave them my father. And now that I'm Supreme President, I see exactly what he meant. Because it takes time like I'd never imagined. I'll never forget the first month of my presidency, and I thought, how am I supposed to practice law? Oh, I'm a dad. I'm supposed to be active at the church. How's this supposed to happen? And now you see where my patriarch comes in, Basil Mosaidis. That's how I got through it. But that was the first call. It was the initiation here through Weirton in chapter 103. I felt a duty at some point in time. Let me back up a second. I started my law practice in Cleveland, and it was afternoon, and the phone rang. It was past Supreme President Frank Manos from Warren, Ohio. He said, George, we're looking for a Supreme Counselor, and we think you should be it. And I thought, oh, shit. Here we go. I had always known a sense of duty, responsibility, obligation to bring honor to my family name and to follow in my grandfather's footsteps. It had always been in me. I went and spoke to my wife. She had always known it, I think even more so than me, that I was readily able to admit. And my family, and they said, go ahead and do it. So it was Supreme Counselor 2 years, Board of Trustees for a few more years, more officers, more positions for a few more years after that, and finally Supreme President, and George O'Neill was right. But my mentor, Frank Manos, told me, enjoy the ride, George. There's nothing like it that you'll ever experience. And he was right. It was memorable, incomparable, fulfilling to be Supreme President of this great order of a HEPA. And that's an understatement. It's indescribable. I don't know that I could explain to anybody. In the next few minutes, I will try to give you a picture. I can tell you it brought out the best in me. After the year that I had being sick, it picked me up off my boots, my bootstraps, and it made me yearn to be better, to answer the call. And the HEPA deserves a great leader because it's a great organization. And I think the synergy is something I'll never forget more than anything else, or the symbiotic relationship. My takeaways for the year is the HEPA is a great ship. It's been around 100 years. It moves a little to the right, it moves a little to the left. It's amazing for a volunteer organization. There's nothing I really could have done in 1 year to make a great change, to make it change its course by 180 or 360 degrees. It's not built that way. Which takes me to my next takeaway. The phenomenal thing about a HEPA and why that ship moves barely to the right and barely to the left is it keeps on moving as a volunteer organization. Nobody gets paid to be a member and to serve. People do it in their spare time. And that's how that ship keeps moving and moving. Not enough time. There's not enough time in a day, week, month, year to do what needs to be done every day for this great order. Representing this order primarily as its spokesperson, communicating with the media and the press releases, dignitaries, legislation, raising money, appearing before my fellow HEPANs to cheer them on, let them know what our platforms are and that we must keep going, reminding them of our past and our purpose, and Hellenism and what our goals are. Oh yeah, I'm a dad and I have a law practice. I almost forgot. It's pretty easy to get caught up in that moment. The third takeaway was respect of the office of the Supreme President of AHEPA. Never have I felt the compassion of people coming up to me and saying thank you, not to George Loucas, but to the office that I represented in that great vessel, that great steamship known as AHEPA that's helped so many people. And everywhere I went, people turned out in droves to do just that, recognize the Supreme President of AHEPA and recognize AHEPA. Now, many think that it's not as great as it once was, but I can tell you, we're here to stay. And I've seen it with my own eyes. And I felt it in my heart when people looked me in the eye and said, you know not what AHEPA's done for my family generations ago and even today, especially through the scholarships for our kids. I often hear, boy, I wish we could give more. You know what it means to a kid to have that on their resume, that they received a scholarship or to be recognized in front of their home, family? It's something they'll never forget, they never do. And we have many people contacting us, even a fellow in the White House right now, to say they want to give back because of what AHEPA has done for them and moving forward. The last thing I take away is the grassroots network of AHEPA. There is no other organization like AHEPA. You heard it here first. There never will be again. We have wonderful organizations in Greek America, Greek Canada, Greece. Many have generous benefactors, but none of them have 25,000 AHEPA family members, distributed throughout 400 plus chapters in the United States, Canada, Europe, namely England, France, Germany, over 30 chapters in Greece alone, Cyprus, and even one in Constantinople. This grassroots network can be summoned by the single call of the Supreme President of AHEPA to mobilize, to achieve something. And as I would tell my dear brother Michael Psaros, I'm preparing this for you as a leader, because with 6 degrees of separations and the 1/2 million members that we've initiated through our years, we could mobilize a political force. We've done it, and we could do it overnight. And that's something that will never happen again in I don't know how many generations, that another organization can be built like this through every major city in this country, north and east across the Atlantic. And I think that's my greatest understanding now, is what grassroots means for AHEPA. And what's even more phenomenal about that is it's volunteerism. It's not the Supreme President that runs AHEPA. It's not Basil even, but it's each one of you. AHEPAns and daughters, sons and maids. Your volunteerism in your respective communities is everything. And it was all started on the bond between two and this oath that we take. And my field, George Bolageris, was on the degree team, and I read the minutes on the way over here today from my grandfather's Supreme Convention, when he gave his yearly report, and he said we need to have a team that goes from city to city to administer the oath of AHEPAns so that they understand the dignity with which they approach this organization, the solemnity, the bond sworn between two brothers of love and respect between one another and their families. And that's critical in this day and age. That's what built AHEPA, is that single bond multiplied, and that was the basis of my Invite One program. And I don't want to get into these kind of details, but that, as I look back in my year, was the most phenomenal part of this great ship. Its grassroots network. And I'm just thrilled to be a part of it, and I hope you understand when you leave here tonight what a great obligation you carry with it as being a member also. We stand on the shoulders, right, of those before us who built this. And as Georgette said, I say it everywhere, we have an obligation to play it forward and to give it to our youth to take forward. We were formed in 1922 to overcome bigotry and keep Greeks from swinging by the trees. Mayor, I'm sorry, I forgot to acknowledge you in my opening remarks, and I just thought of it. I love Bubba. I love that name, and if I ever walk this way again, I'm going to have buttons made that welcome Bubba, Mayor of Weirton. Your Honor, thank you for being with us tonight. I should have kept my mouth shut. I always say AHEPA was formed to help Greek immigrants become American citizens. But today, AHEPA's purpose is to remind the world of the ideals of ancient Greece, Hellenism, beginning with such fundamentals of Western society as democracy, right? Family, education, community, charity, service. It's philotimo. That's what our job is today. And without the chapters and the members, this ship is rudderless. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It means a lot. Beginning with my family. And I would like for the members of my immediate family seated here to please stand. Please stand up. Thank you for all your sacrifice. Mary, you especially, Mary. Thank you, Mom. Thank you. The Karnapakis clan is here in force. Thank you for being here. For those of you that joined because I was Supreme President this year, Gary and Richard Saxon couldn't be here with us tonight. My brother-in-law David, and among many others. Thank you. Sandra and my children, thank you most of all, because I've been absent a lot this year. I think I was home maybe 5 weekends, 10 tops for the entire year. Thank you most of all. I know it may not seem like much, and I don't know how to say this to my 2 children, but I hope you understand the investment of time and expense of, well, your husband, your father, is worth it all, having been gone from you for so long. But I promise you this much, I visit a lot of folks throughout the world, and I've made a vast number of new friends based upon this bond that I'm talking to you about. And if you'll remember, the whole reason that I'm standing up here by way of Weirton, West Virginia through Cleveland, Ohio, is because I was in a trailer in the hills of Morgantown, West Virginia when the phone rang, and it was the Honorable John M. Manners, the spring counselor for my grandfather. And he said, I hear you want to be a lawyer. And the next thing you know, he said, I promised your grandfather that if ever the opportunity arose, I would do something to take care of his family. And I've been in Cleveland ever since. And that's because of the bond that was built in AHEPA that I talked about, and which is so important to me, between AHEPA brothers. You know, it was mentioned here about me, Craig, me and George Choriakis. They were probably 2 of the last great AHEPA political battles, you know, which reminds me of Odysseus. You know, they say the trip home is because of the glory and honor achieved from being away and fighting in battle. The glory comes from the battle, and I can attest the battle through AHEPA politics. If anybody knows AHEPA politics, they know what I'm talking about. And the honor came from just trying to abide by the law and doing the next right thing and bringing honor back to my family and my community. But it's this notion of having fought so mightily with George Horiatis as adversaries, and now we're best brothers and friends. He traveled with me everywhere I went this year, to Jerusalem, Greece 3 times, and he was at my side, and I vowed to be by his next year as he takes the helm as Supreme President. And these are the types of relationships, kids, that are made through this organization, and I have invested this last several years making them. And someday, if you need safe harbor or something done for you, God willing, as was done for me through the grace of AHEPA and the relationships there, they'll be waiting for you too. And the same with anybody else and their youth in this family. I hope AHEPA and the treasures of the relationships and the family can bring you that as well someday. I said when I started, come full circle, or is it a half circle? I don't want to say full circle from my grandfather to me. Congratulations again, Weirton, for having the only 2 Supreme Presidents that are grandfather and grandson in 100 years of AHEPA history. But you know, I'm looking out at all these faces and I'm just overwhelmed with humility, and gratitude. Thank you once again for everything you've done for me and my family. This is my home. It always will be. Kalenita sas que sas efkaristo para puli. Adios.